So good morning. My name is James Wilmot from Forum Europe, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to our Forum Europe's inaugural Future Cities Conference, which will look to plot a path across a range of areas from managing urban expansion and congestion to encouraging innovation and environmental sustainability. Ultimately, the role that European cities can play in the twin transitions towards climate neutrality and digital leadership. We've convened a real heavyweight grouping of experts for you to listen to and engage with across the next 2 days. And from the whole team at Forum Europe, I want to give my thanks ahead of the event to you and to all the speakers who've agreed to be with us. So very much appreciated. Special mention should also be reserved for my colleague Annelies Simon, who has been with Forum Europe, by my calculation, which probably means it's wrong, by the way, for 3,662 days. So that's just over 10 years. So she's an absolutely amazing colleague, and this event is another example of how incredible she is in her work. So thank you, Annelies. A few brief words on the platform we use. Many of you will be familiar with it now, but to run through some of the key elements, you're watching this in the stage area of the platform, and this is where much of the live content will be available to you. On the right-hand side, you should have, or you should see the conference and the stage chat. You can use these to post your comments and your questions across the next 2 days. The stage chat, so the chat that's labeled stage, is the one best used when sessions are live. On the conference tab on the right, you can click on the people option to view your fellow participants and engage them if you wish in chat or video meetings. And you also have the option of more spontaneous networking using the labeled networking option on the left-hand side of the screen. Staying on that left-hand set of menu options, you should be able to see the City Innovation Hub option. Don't click that just yet as you'll navigate away. However, I would encourage you to check the fantastic content that has been pulled together in there, which covers many of the issues we are addressing at this conference, and indeed more across the 2 days. Alongside the main sessions, we also have a number of dedicated sessions. We call them showcases or thinking points, but essentially they're deeper dives into specific areas. The first one is up at around 12:30 CEST today and will be led by Dell, so I'd encourage you to look out for those also. Now that I've mentioned Dell, it's a good opportunity to thank our sponsors and partners for their support of this gathering. So again, to Dell, Johnson Controls, Microsoft, and Move EU, thank you for your involvement. Eurocities have also been an invaluable partner this year, and as always, thanks to Encompass, our long-standing media partner. If you do miss anything across the 2 days, all of the content will be made available as replays, and you'll receive details on how to access this in due course. If you're tweeting, you can use the hashtag FutureCityConf. So finally, depending on how things progress over the next few months, we're beginning to plan more concretely for a return to in-person events and what these might look like. The situation is fluid, of course, and I think it's been proved that while it's necessary to do so, virtual events do offer a means by which to continue these types of conversations. But if you are interested in learning more about what hybrid events can look like and more substantially what it means in terms of a return to audiences, etc., and then please do get in touch with us. We're available in the chat area for any practical questions that you might have, so do reach out to us there. And other than that, all that is left for me to say is enjoy the conference. I shall see you a little later, and I'll now hand over to Paul Adamson, Forum Europe's chairman, who will moderate this morning's keynote session. So Paul, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, James, and let me also echo my gratitude and my appreciation to our wonderful colleague Anne-Lise Simon for putting this conference together. We have over 650 people registered for this event, so clearly we're onto something. Let me briefly set the scene before handing over to our two keynote addresses this morning. As we all know, urbanization is an ongoing trend in the EU, with latest figures showing that 75% of Europe's population live in cities. And as are places where people live, work, learn, create, consume, and socialize, cities are major drivers of socioeconomic growth. Urban sprawl and increasingly growing populations have at the same time, however, created some major challenges within cities, impacting the environment, the delivery of public services, land management, infrastructure, resource consumption, and have exacerbated inequalities. All of these challenges have been particularly put to the forefront during the COVID-19 crisis, with various levels of lockdowns and restrictions leading citizens to rethink the way they interact with their surroundings. And as the closest level of governments to people and as centers of economic growth, cities have the potential to play a major role in dealing with many of the critical issues faced in Europe today by becoming key drivers of the twin green and digital transitions. In this conference, we will explore the innovative tools as well as the policy and financial support available to cities to respond to existing and pressing challenges and ask what more is needed. We will discuss the impact that digital technologies combined with a strong focus on sustainability and a human-centric approach can have to facilitate the transformation of cities into agile, efficient, green, and resilient places to improve the quality of life of their inhabitants and promote social cohesion. And as well as showcasing cities that have unlocked significant economic, environmental, and social benefits thanks to successful transformation strategies with green and digital aspects at their core, we will analyze the lessons learned and highlight the importance of cooperation amongst governments at different territorial levels and of collaboration between industry, universities, local businesses, and citizens. And finally, we will ask how new ways of thinking about the design and planning of cities can be further promoted to sustain urban growth and to embed urban resilience and adaptation in the recovery planning in line with the goals of the EU Urban Agenda, with the plans outlined in the European Industrial Strategy, Data Strategy, and the Green Deal, and of course in accordance with the Paris Agreement and the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Well, that's the scene setting bit. Now it's my very great pleasure to introduce the first of our two keynote addresses this morning. Great pleasure to welcome Dieter Jurgensen, the Director General of Energy at the European Commission. Thank you so much, Dieter, for being here with us this morning. You are a very, very busy lady indeed, so we very much appreciate your time. Before I give you the floor, I point out to the audience that if they want to have the opportunity to ask Dieter a question, now would be the chance, because Dieter will be able to stay hopefully for a while after her opening remarks. So if you want to ask a question, use the chat function, and I'll do my best to forward it to her and field it. If not, I have plenty of questions, I'm sure, for Dieter anyway. Without further ado from me, Dieter, over to you, and thank you again.
Thank you very much, Paul, and good morning, everyone. Thank you to Forum Europe also for organizing this event. It's always a great pleasure for me to have the opportunity like this one to discuss the green and digital transition. You've mentioned it, Paul, and what it really means for citizens in Europe. And I think one of the greatest challenges we have today is, of course, that of climate change and the transition from a fossil fuel-based economy towards a climate neutral in 2050, with an energy system that is more integrated and fit for the future, and that helps make this change. As you said, Paul, cities and towns represent about 75% of Europe's population, and so we need change also in cities and towns in order to get there and achieve our target of climate neutrality by 2050. The European response and the European plan for how to do it is, of course, the European Green Deal. It's also a growth strategy, a job-creating strategy, And as you've also said, it has the goal of both green and digital transition. Now, in order to achieve our target of climate neutrality and 55% of reductions in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, we need to make sure that we have the right regulatory framework, that we have the right instruments to accelerate the transition and to get there in the most cost-effective way. In just a month from today, the 14th of July, we will be presenting the Fit for 55 package, which will include a revision of a number of different pieces of legislation on climate, energy, transport, taxation, to help us achieve the target of 55% in 2030. Within my field, within energy policy, it's about renewable energy and energy efficiency. And energy is important in this context because 75% of our greenhouse gas emissions come from either production of energy or consumption of energy. So we need to produce cleaner energy and we need to consume less energy overall. This first package in the summer will be complemented by further initiatives later in the year about the energy performance of buildings, about hydrogen and gas decarbonization, and about how do we reduce methane emissions in the energy sector. So all of these are key elements in the green and digital transition, including in cities and towns across Europe. Because we want cities to be well equipped for the transition in terms of both infrastructure, investment, but also the right skills for the right jobs at the right time. And what I would like to do, Paul, is just to set out 3 examples of how we in the European Commission are supporting them. Now, the first one is the Renovation Wave. We launched it last October, and it aims to double the rate of renovations of buildings by 2030. The main reason for this is that buildings represent about 40% of our total energy consumption and 36% of our energy-related carbon emissions. So in other words, we can make a real dent in the carbon emissions if we renovate our buildings, make them more energy efficient. So the Renovation Wave sets out a number of regulatory and financing and other measures to help achieve higher rates of renovation, make the buildings more efficient, make them more digital, and help apply smarter solutions to the buildings in Europe. But of course, it's much more than just energy efficiency. It's also about health and well-being of citizens, heating our homes. It's about reducing the energy bills and thereby addressing energy poverty. And then it's about helping give access to safe and affordable housing. Renovation is also a huge potential in terms of jobs and growth. There are about 18 million jobs related to the construction sector across the European Union, and it generates about 9% of the European GDP. And about for every million of euros that we invest in building renovation, we create about 12 to 18 local jobs, according to the International Energy Agency analysis. So in terms of all the different investments we can make for our recovery and resilience under the Next Generation EU Recovery Plan, investment into renovation of buildings is the one that hits the different targets best, both in terms of limiting greenhouse gas emissions, achieving climate objectives, but also job and growth creation, and of course local jobs primarily in the construction sector. The second example I would like to mention is that of the mission on climate neutral and smart cities under Horizon Europe. It aims to create at least 100 climate neutral cities across the European Union by 2030. And what we want to do is to develop the mission in the context of the new Horizon Europe program and thereby combine funding and private investment so that we can help cities become research and innovation hubs for others to follow and set an example of how you become climate neutral and what it means for your citizens. The third example I would like to mention is that of smart cities and communities. It's supported by the European Commission to roll out sustainable green solutions for urban areas, and it does that with a Smart Cities Marketplace, which aims to trigger private investment to scale up smart city solutions. The Marketplace's matchmaking service over the last few years have helped to produce more than 130 project plans with an investment of nearly 600 million euro. It's directly linked to 18 Horizon-backed Smart Cities Lighthouse projects involving 120 cities, and it delivers 180 demonstration sites across Europe with total investments of at least 1 billion euro up till now. And then, of course, there's the Covenant of Mayors. Many of you are already familiar with the Covenant of Mayors, and we in the Commission are proud to be part of this community with 10,000 municipalities that are committed to meaningful and impactful action on climate change. So there's genuine European added value and a strong role for cities as a driver of change across Europe. Cities are working actively with one another across Europe to create smart, green and digital futures, and working internationally as well with partners in other countries. So once it's safe to do so again, I hope we can go and see some of these projects in action and meet in person. And with this, I wish you an interesting and thought-provoking and inspiring day ahead. Thank you.
Over to Dario. Let me ask you one question, which is maybe a bit convoluted, so prepare yourself. The European Green Deal was, of course, a flagship policy of the European Commission from the very beginning of the van der Leyen Commission. And you inherited that, I suppose, when you became Director General around the same time. And then, of course, we have COVID. And you mentioned Next Generation Europe, which is an extraordinarily ambitious and impressive facility to finance change in the member states. Has that Next Generation EU project and the facility that goes with it, RRF and the jargon, complicated people's thinking, or is it made life easier because you can actually not just talk about urging member states to do things, you actually now have in effect a pot of cash to encourage them to take action rather than just talk about it?
Thank you, Paul. It's a good question. And I think the answer is essentially that in order to achieve climate neutrality, in order to achieve the 55% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions already by 2030, and these are ambitious targets, we're going to need significant investments, and we're going to need to invest right. We're going to need to invest in cleaner energy. We're going to invest in energy efficiency. We're going to invest in cleaner transport. And there, the Next Generation EU and the funding made available and the national recovery plans are an opportunity rather than a problem, in the sense that it's an opportunity for member states to plan their investments over the coming years as part of the recovery, and to plan the investments in a way that supports the green transition. We have set a target of 37% of investments under Next Generation EU that would have to be climate related. And in order to achieve the 37% in climate-related investments, you're going to need to invest in clean energy infrastructure. That can be electricity grids, it can be offshore or onshore wind, large photovoltaic power generation facilities. It can be electrolyzers for green hydrogen. It can be energy efficiency investments, and many member states in their national plans have reflected these, what we would call flagship projects at European level. And it can be charging stations for e-mobility, which is, as you know, a lot more energy efficient than the combustion engine is. So a lot of investments that can be made under Next Generation EU that can really help accelerate the investments, the transition, but also I think focus our minds on what is actually needed to achieve our climate targets in a cost-effective way, while we try to create jobs and growth and strengthen European competitiveness through the innovation that is a necessary part of the transition as well.
Okay, thank you, Dita. I'm not sure if you can stay. If you can stay for a few minutes for the next speaker for Dario, then if you can stay to the very end, I can bring you back into the discussion briefly. It depends on how busy you are. We'll see how it goes, but we have to move on because time is pressing. Thank you again very much for your time, and hopefully we can have a chance to have a brief chat in a few minutes if you can possibly stay. We'll see. Right, moving on now. It's my very great pleasure to introduce Il Sindaco di Firenze, otherwise known as the Mayor of Florence, Dario Nardella, who also is the president of Eurocities, the very influential and impressive organization bringing all the major cities of Europe together to lobby for change, and very effectively they're doing it. Dario, without further ado, thank you very much for being with us this morning. You're a busy guy as well, and I give you the floor. Welcome.
So, molte grazie, Paul. So, good morning to everybody, and thank you to Forum Europe for organizing this event on future cities and for the opportunity to participate both as President of Eurocities and Mayor of Florence. Eurocities, as you know, is the network of 200 larger European cities, and we work together to improve the quality of life for people. Our goals are that people in our cities can take part in an inclusive society and a prosperous local economy. We want people to move and live in a healthy environment with vibrant and open urban spaces. And we work together to make our city administrations future fit and to address our major challenges of social equity, climate change, and digital transformation. The pandemic and crisis have accelerated some of the transitions that had already started in our cities, but also reinforced some of our most difficult challenges. It has widened the gap between those that have a lot and those that have very little in our cities. It has focused attention on the need for our urban systems to be more resilient in times of crisis. And it has also created a sense of us having a unique opportunity now to build back better, to make our cities both more sustainable and inclusive. There is a strong shared vision for what kind of cities we want for the future. I participated in the G7 Urban Summit last week. I was struck by the consensus among the urban leaders globally. It is about creating livable cities and a better quality of life for people. This means tackling the climate emergency and the poverty challenges in our urban areas. It also means ensuring that the digital transformation is put to good use for people and public policies. Now, the real question is, how do we get there? How do we identify the right pathways in the coming 10, 20, and 30 years? We see here today a recognition of an urban leadership for the green and digital transformations we did in Europe. I'm very pleased with that. I think that as city leaders, we can do things the national government cannot. We are the level of government closest to people, and we can lead, bring people together around common goals. We can build coalitions for change at local level, and we have leadership of place with responsibilities for the areas surrounding our cities as well. We can share experiences and learn from each other as we do in Eurocities, and we copy small and big solutions from each other every day. This accelerates transformations in Europe, but we cannot be successful if we work alone. We need the right legal frameworks, resources, and partnership approaches to be able to move forward faster. Firstly, on legislative frameworks, I want to say that in Eurocities, we fully support the goals of European Green Deal, climate neutrality by 2015, transforming the economy while leaving no one behind. We will soon be launching the Mayors Alliance for the Green Deal with the European Climate Foundation. It will showcase how cities implement the European Green Deal locally. A sustainable transition to a climate-neutral society is possible, and that cities are leading the way. It should be clear to the European Union that working with cities to deliver the Green Deal will be essential to its success. And the mission for 100 climate-neutral cities by 2030 will be our moon landing. The challenge is immense, but we must get this one off the ground, testing new governance and financing methods in our cities. It will give the rest of Europe a path towards 2015. We know that the digital transformation in our cities is vital to meet the goals of the Green Deal. As cities, we are looking very closely at the development of EU rules about data and the new technologies. The digital tools must serve citizens' needs and support public policies, not the other way around. And we are part of the Living in EU movement, working for digital solutions that create places where people enjoy living and working. Secondly, on resources, following a decade of underinvestment in cities, the pandemic and crisis has hit us hard. Our public budgets are stretched beyond limits, and the national recovery plans will soon be rolled out, backed by EU funding and loans. This is a crucial moment for our future. And investments in the coming years must get Europe on the path for a sustainable and inclusive recovery, of course. We must make sure that the national recovery plans boost the urban transformation needed. Too few cities were involved in developing the recovery plans in their member states. And we now need a structural dialogue at the European level which fully involves cities and other stakeholders to monitor the implementation of plans. Also, it should be much easier to set up a city-driven pan-European projects under the Recovery and Resilience Facility to support recovery. As cities, we can contribute directly to the European flagship initiatives for the green and digital transition. And we are used to work together to deliver a multi-country project, and we are ready to do this as part of the national recovery plans. Thirdly, on partnership approach, the points I have made on legal frameworks and resources are really about working together with the European Union and with our member states to deliver the green and digital transformation. Now, the conference on the future of Europe has kicked off, offering us all a say. My wish is for European Union governance to be renewed to enable a much stronger and joined up collaboration between the European Union and our cities. The urban agenda for the EU has laid ground for this, and the conference on the future of Europe is the right opportunity to boost the collaboration between levels of government. It is the moment for the European Union to embrace the transformational power of its cities toward a climate-neutral future for all. Finally, the debate during this conference looks at many of the issues we are currently working on in our cities with the citizens, civil society, local business, and the knowledge institutions. How do we make our urban system more circular, our buildings and urban mobility more sustainable? How do we transform our energy and food system? What is the future for tourism and urban design? I hope the debates will be rich and inspiring for our urban future. Working across all sectors, with all stakeholders and with all levels of government is our best change of achieving our vision for livable cities. And I want to extend an open invitation to everyone to come and work with us to drive the green and digital transformation. So thank you for your attention. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much, Dario. Very interesting indeed, your intervention. You said on a number of occasions that, of course, cities are closest to citizens than, say, rather remote policymakers here in Brussels. In a recent op-ed, you wrote about how mayors and city leaders, I'm quoting, can play a double role in the green transition. You say as ambassadors for the European Green Deal locally, and as representatives of people's concerns and interests to other levels of government. And you go on to say that what would be a good idea would, as you call it, a new pact between city and EU leaders to centralize people in this recovery effort, and it would be a positive signal. Do you have any indication whether that idea is being put forward and having any kind of positive response from EU policy leaders, this kind of cooperation that you're talking about?
So yes, thank you, Paul. We have two key approaches. One is a citizen first, and second is human-centric approach. And this new pact, as you mentioned, with local government leaders, I think is crucial for the success of recovery and resilience European plans. And we need more attention at European level, especially from national governments. It's very important that we can work together, both national governments and European institutions. And we mayors have to work on these two sides. One is local level, and the second one is global level, because the success of our European targets as climate change, carbon neutrality, digital transformation needs concrete and effective rules from bottom-up process. Without mayors, anything is possible in this crucial moment for our global European targets.
Okay, thank you, Dario. I'm going to bring in briefly, if I can, Dita, because certainly to prove it, she stayed with us for the past few minutes, which is great. Thank you very much. I'm sure listening in attentively to Dario's intervention as well. I'm going to try and maybe ask a similar question to you then, Dita, because as a caricature, I know that remote policymakers in Brussels and all the work is being done on the ground. But do you see, given you and the Commission have to assess all these recovery plans, don't you? And that's quite a huge task, frankly. So, do you see scope for the kind of cooperation that Dario is talking about? That you're in a partnership, basically. You each need each other. Is that a fair point?
Yes, I think it's a very good point. I fully agree with what Dario said, in the sense that we need cities to deliver, and cities need to work locally. Obviously, that's their role, their place. But they also need to work globally and work with each other. Of course, the national processes around the recovery plans has been handled by each member state. They're best placed to do that. But I think you need to look at these plans in combination with what are the national energy and climate plans, the earlier plans for the full decade for how to achieve climate and energy targets by 2030, which build on a very thorough consultation process nationally, including with local authorities and regions and citizens. So there's been, I think, in most member states, if not all member states, there has been a good interaction with different levels of governance, and with, as Dario said, really a key role for cities, because a lot of the solutions will have to be found there. We set the overall regulatory framework at European level. We work with member states, but we also work with cities and local level. And I think cities can really help find the solutions and help us get there in the most cost-effective and competitive way.
Right. Well, a quick final point then to Dario, then I'll let you both go back to your day jobs with you. Dario, again, going back to this recent op-ed, there is the aspect called, all this is obviously by definition a rather technical discussion, whether on the green side, the digital side, and the two come together. But as you say in your op-ed, there's also the very strong social, human side to this. And you say, it'll be no good making our houses more energy efficient if people can no longer afford the rent. Do you see there's a way for you, as in your position as a mayor, but also running Eurocities, to kind of occasionally, in a very diplomatic and a friendly and cooperative way, remind the European Commission and EU policymaker that there is also this human social dimension to what we're all trying to achieve together? Is there a role for you to play in that regard?
Oh, yes, Paul. First of all, let me thanks Dita for her vision. I completely agree with the G about the role of European Commission. And to be honest, I want to underline that we already had many meetings with the European commissioners and also general director of several European Commission directions. Now our goal is to have a kind of task force with European institutions and national governments, because our dialogue with the national governments is sometimes often complicated, difficult, in order to share the same methods, same strategy and tools to achieve the national recovery plan. And that's because we need the support of European Commission and European Parliament, and we together could push the national governments to sustain also the pan-European projects and pan-European vision in this European recovery and resilience strategy. Because we don't need mathematics addiction of all the national recovery plans, but we need a common and European vision, a common European strategy about recovery and resilience. And that's because I think social inclusion is one of the key aspects of this process. We need an inclusive approach to tackle the social needs. And if we want to reach in a very good way and rapidly the Green Deal targets and digital transformation and carbon-free 2015, we have to involve our citizens. So our social model are important in order to achieve a new social model to push all our citizens to the same target, to the same goals. We don't need only we don't need only an institutional movement, but also a very large social engagement for our communities with a bottom-up process.
Thank you very much, Dario. We have to leave it there. My thanks again to both of you for making the time this morning. Tremendous start to our two-day conference. Thank you, Dita, and thank you, Dario. Buona giornata. Right, now we're going to move on to our first panel, so do stay tuned on the main stage. The panel is entitled Reinventing Life in European Cities Through Open Data and a Human-Centric Approach. Thank you for listening so far, and have a good day.